It's official. The FIA has spoken, and Ferrari just got exactly what they needed. Two additional engine homologations, granted directly by Formula One's governing body, and Fred Vasseur himself has now confirmed what it actually means for the rest of this season. So here's the question everyone in the paddock is asking right now. Is this the moment Ferrari finally closes the gap to the front? Or is this simply too little, too late for a championship that's already slipping away? If you've been following Ferrari's 2026 season, you already know the story so far. A strong start, flashes of genuine race-winning pace, but a gap to the front that's refused to fully close. Now, though, something has officially changed. Not a rumor, not paddock speculation, an actual ruling from the FIA itself. So let's break down exactly what this ruling says, exactly why it matters, and exactly what Vasseur has now confirmed about how Ferrari plans to use it. Stick with me until the end of this video because I'm going to walk you through the entire ADUO story, from the FIA's original findings, all the way through to the upgrade Ferrari is planning to deploy, and why this single regulatory decision could reshape the entire second half of the championship. Let's start with the basics, because understanding this system is the key to understanding everything else. Formula One's governing body introduced something called ADUO for the 2026 season, which stands for Additional Development and Upgrade Opportunities. Think of it as a built-in catch-up mechanism, specifically designed to stop any single power unit manufacturer from running away with a permanent, unbeatable advantage under the sport's brand-new engine regulations. Here's how it works. Across the season, the FIA measures each manufacturer's internal combustion engine performance against the class-leading benchmark. If a manufacturer falls behind by more than a certain threshold, they're granted extra chances to upgrade their engine outside the normal development restrictions. Now here's the question worth asking right away. If Ferrari genuinely believed their engine could close the gap through ordinary development alone, would they even need a system like this? The very fact that Ferrari qualified for these extra opportunities tells you the deficit was real, measurable, and significant. And it turns out, it was more significant than most fans realized. The FIA officially confirmed the results of its first review period, which concluded after the Canadian Grand Prix. Mercedes was found to be sitting between 2 and 4% behind the class-leading engine, earning them one additional homologation for 2026 and another for 2027. But Ferrari, along with Honda and grid newcomer Audi, was found to be trailing by more than 4%. That's a much steeper deficit. And because of that steeper gap, Ferrari was granted the maximum concession available under the entire system. 2 additional homologations in 2026 and 2 more in 2027, along with expanded dyno testing hours and additional cost cap allowances to actually build these upgrades. Sit with that for a second. 2 extra chances this year alone, that's not a minor technical footnote. That's the FIA essentially confirming in black and white that Ferrari's power unit had real, quantifiable room to grow, and handing them the tools to make it happen. So here's a question worth thinking about. Why would the FIA build a system like this in the first place? Simple. Formula One wants close racing. Nobody wants an entire championship decided in March because one manufacturer nailed the new regulations and everyone else fell hopelessly behind. ADUO exists specifically to prevent that outcome. And Ferrari, for better or worse, became one of the manufacturers this system was designed to help. Now let's talk about how Ferrari has actually used these opportunities so far, because this is where the story gets genuinely exciting. Their first ADUO-influenced engine upgrade arrived at the Austrian Grand Prix. It landed just one race after Ferrari had already introduced a successful 8-part upgrade package in Barcelona, a race that also delivered Lewis Hamilton's first win in nearly 2 years. Ferrari's own power unit director, Enrico Gualtieri, explained the philosophy behind it at the time, describing how the team has combined continuous, ongoing development with longer-term development programs, running both approaches in parallel so they reinforce each other rather than compete for resources. But even with that first upgrade landing, Ferrari was careful not to overhype it. They publicly stated it would not, on its own, change the competitive order at the front of the grid. Now here's a question worth sitting with. Why would a team downplay an FIA-approved engine boost instead of celebrating it? Is that just typical Ferrari caution? Or is it a sign that the real, decisive upgrade was still to come? Because it was. According to respected F1 insider reporting, Ferrari has been preparing a second, far more significant specification, referred to in the paddock as ADUO 2, targeted specifically for Monza, the Temple of Speed, the one circuit on the entire calendar where raw horsepower matters more than almost anywhere else. And the details behind this upgrade are genuinely fascinating. When Ferrari originally designed their 2026 power unit, they deliberately chose a smaller turbocharger, specifically to eliminate lag off the line. Smart thinking, in theory. But then the FIA introduced a new 5-second pre-start procedure partway through the season, and that small turbo advantage was instantly wiped out, leaving Ferrari with a real straight-line speed penalty compared to their rivals. So here's the twist. The ADUO 2 specification heading to Monza is expected to directly correct that exact weakness, featuring a completely redesigned turbocharger, new blade angles, a revised blade count, and advanced materials capable of handling extreme combustion temperatures. Combined, the two-phase ADUO engine recovery plan is reportedly targeting a genuinely massive gain of around 30 horsepower. Now think about what 30 horsepower actually means in modern Formula One. That's not a marginal tweak. That's potentially race-changing. That's the difference between fighting for third place and fighting for the win outright at a power-sensitive circuit like Monza. So here's the real question. If this upgrade delivers anywhere close to what's being reported, what does that mean for Mercedes, who currently sit at the front of both championships? What does it mean for Lewis Hamilton's title hopes, still very much alive but increasingly dependent on Ferrari actually converting their pace into results? And what does it mean for the rest of the grid, who now have to reckon with a Ferrari power unit that's been officially, legally upgraded twice in a single season, with FIA approval every step of the way? Now let's bring this back to Vasseur, because his confirmation of all this matters just as much as the technical details themselves. As team principal, Vasseur has walked a careful line all season, never overselling Ferrari's progress, always waiting for confirmation before celebrating publicly. And that pattern continued here. When directly asked about whether Ferrari would qualify for these extra development windows, his answer was measured. He said he believed Ferrari would fall within the required parameters, but that ultimately, it was up to the FIA to confirm the actual numbers. That's exactly what just happened. The FIA has confirmed it. Officially. In writing. And that changes Vasseur's tone from cautious optimism to something much closer to validated confidence. Here's a question worth asking. Why does that shift matter so much? Because in Formula One, speculation doesn't win championships. Confirmed, homologated, FIA-approved upgrades do. And Ferrari now has exactly that, sitting in their development pipeline, ready to be deployed at the exact moment it can do the most damage to Mercedes' championship lead. Let's also address the bigger picture here because this story doesn't exist in isolation. Remember, Ferrari's aggressive development approach has already caused genuine tension in the paddock this season. Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff publicly questioned how Ferrari could afford to bring such extensive upgrade packages, even hinting Ferrari might be running close to their cost cap limits. Vasseur fired back hard, calling the insinuation essentially an accusation of cheating, and pointing out that Ferrari's upgrade rate actually matched what Red Bull and Cadillac were doing across the same stretch of races. Now, with the FIA's own ADUO ruling public and confirmed, doesn't that response age even better? Ferrari wasn't bending any rules. They were using a legitimate FIA-sanctioned system available to any manufacturer who qualified for it, exactly as intended. So let's zoom out and put the complete picture together. Ferrari has officially been granted 2 additional engine homologations for 2026, confirmed directly by the FIA. They've already deployed their first ADUO-influenced upgrade at the Austrian Grand Prix. They're reportedly preparing a second, far more significant specification for Monza, targeting a combined 30 horsepower gain across both development phases. And Vasseur himself has now confirmed the regulatory groundwork that makes all of this possible. Here's the question I really want you to think about as we head toward the rest of this season. If Ferrari's power unit genuinely closes that horsepower deficit at a track like Monza, where every extra tenth from the engine gets magnified more than almost anywhere else, how many races would it actually take before Ferrari stops chasing Mercedes and starts genuinely threatening them for both championships? And if that happens, What does it mean for Lewis Hamilton's 8th title dream? What does it mean for Charles Leclerc, who's already shown flashes of championship-caliber pace this year? And what does it mean for Mercedes, who now have to defend a lead against a rival that's just received the FIA's official stamp of approval to catch up? This is exactly why the second half of the 2026 season is shaping up to be one of the most genuinely unpredictable title fights in years. Not because Mercedes has suddenly slowed down, but because Ferrari now has a confirmed regulatory-backed pathway to close the gap, and the timing, right before Monza, could not be more dramatic. So now I want to hear from you. Do you believe this FIA-approved engine upgrade is enough to genuinely put Ferrari back into true championship contention? Do you think Mercedes should be worried about what's coming down the pipeline at Monza? And most importantly, with this kind of regulatory backing now confirmed, could we be looking at a real three-way title fight before this season is over? Drop your predictions in the comments below right now. I want to know if you believe Ferrari can actually convert this engine boost into real results on track. And if this video helped you understand exactly what the FIA just approved and why it matters so much for the rest of the championship, do me a favor. Hit that like button so more fans can see the real story behind the headlines. Subscribe if you haven't already, because with an upgrade like this heading to Monza, you do not want to miss what happens next. And turn on notifications, because the moment Ferrari's new power unit hits the track, this story is only going to get bigger. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.